A couple of weeks ago, I made a video titled Singers Whose Voices Went to Crap, and in the comments section, I got many requests to do a video about singers whose voices still sound good. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I do like doing positive videos too, after all. So let's take a look at the various singers, mainly in the rock genre, whose voices somehow freakishly withstood the test of time. This is Dancing with Ghosts.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing? Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything?
Say what you want about the guy and his music, but Green Day's Billy Joe Armstrong still sounds pretty much the same way he did back all the way in 1994 with the release of their pop-punk masterpiece Dookie. His voice may not be what you consider good, but it fits perfectly with the punk genre and has remained consistent for over 30 years.
There's a little black spot in the sun today. It's the same old thing as yesterday.
Though his voice may sound a little more gruff with the patina of age, and though his range may have lowered slightly, Sting sounds very similar to how he sang in his prime. In fact, he used to sing too high in my opinion. When the Police released their first record, Outlandos d'Amour, some fake French name, Sting's voice sounded very similar to that of a mosquito. By the time of 1983's Synchronicity dropped, Sting had honed his voice to prime Stingness. It would be these songs and songs from his very successful solo career that would go on sounding great throughout the years. I mean, the guy took great care of himself, and having a voice that is still in tip-top shape is the benefit that his lifestyle yielded. Experimental alternative group Radiohead have been consistently evolving since the debut of their first record, Pablo Honey, back in 1993. One thing that has remained consistent, however, is lead singer Thom Yorke's clean and sometimes operatic vocal abilities. In the early phases of Radiohead's career, Yorke's vocals tended to lean more towards a snarly punk rock style tone.
And you do it to yourself, you do, and that's why we
As they progressed into a more electronic experimental era, however, Yorke started exploring and refining his falsetto voice, which he would use more and more often. Thom Yorke has branched off into many musical projects over the decades, but his crystal clear vocal tone has remained consistent.
I wanna be a sledgehammer. I wanna be
Former Genesis frontman, and I really hate saying former Genesis frontman because the dude quit the band nearly 50 years ago, and I'm not even joking. He left the band in 1975. But yes, Peter Gabriel is often prefaced as the former lead singer of Genesis because A, the group went on to become quite popular with Phil Collins as lead vocalist, and B, Peter Gabriel's time in Genesis would go on to divide the fan base with very few fans liking both eras simultaneously. When Peter first started off in Genesis, his voice hadn't quite matured into the soulful, rich baritone that it would become.
The time lost within this world.
Pete's voice had a pubescent clarity to it that would go on to become more grizzled and dynamic, with a very interesting use of falsetto to punctuate short little phrases or words in his songs.
Something knocked me out the trees, and now I'm on my knees. Get alive with the dreamer's dream.
I I believe this technique is pretty unique to Peter Gabriel, and it would definitely go on to inspire newer upcoming artists. Peter's physical appearance has altered drastically if you only remember him from his 1980s art pop days, but the moment he starts singing, there's that voice. Unlike his former bandmate Phil Collins, whose voice has aged so bad that I had to put him in my previous video, Peter Gabriel's voice essentially sounds just as it did in the 1980s with maybe slightly less vigor. Nonetheless, for a guy who's been singing for more than half a century, I say he still sounds goddamn good. The criminally underrated second vocalist in Alice in Chains has never gotten the credit he truly deserves. Not only was Jerry Cantrell the primary songwriter in the band when it came to the music, his backup vocals and sometimes lead vocals truly defined the harmonic magic that made up the Alice in Chains signature sound. Jerry Cantrell and lead singer Lane Staley's vocals blended together so well that oftentimes you couldn't tell who was singing what. Though Cantrell's vocal tone wasn't as pronounced as the buzzsaw vocals of Lane Staley, he had the perfect sort of vocal tone that wouldn't step on the lead vocal. Did you ever notice that it was Jerry Cantrell singing the verses on the Alice in Chains hit Wood? Not gonna lie, it didn't register with me as a teenager listening to the song on the radio. Also, when Alice in Chains reformed in 2009 with new lead vocalist William Duvall, they dropped the song Check My Brain. So I found myself in the sun. Oh yeah. You couldn't tell me the ghost of Lane Staley's vocals weren't in that song somewhere. But no, it's just a testament to how much Jerry Cantrell's vocals define that classic Alice in Chains sound. And it's also for this reason why Alice in Chains are still kicking ass to this day at their live shows. I should know. I saw them in St. Augustine a few years ago. They were awesome.
I'll be the roundabout, the word to make you out. I spend the day lonely. I'll be the roundabout, the word to make you out. I spend the day your way.
I have a theory about short men who can sing. I truly believe their smaller stature equates to smaller vocal cords, which can produce higher pitches than a man of average height. I would say, with the exception of Sebastian Bach, who stands at an impressive 6'3" and can wail like a banshee, most dudes who have those stratospheric tenor voices tend to be small. The late Ronnie James Dio had an incredible voice during his living years, and he was a mere 5'4". Steve Perry from Journey is 5'7". And Yes's John Anderson stands at a rather short 5'5". But man, does this old bastard belt out those highs like it was 1971. It's almost like a rule in prog rock that you have to be an ear-piercingly high vocalist in order to be the frontman. I don't know, it just seems to be the way that genre goes. Yes, we're also known for their multi-layered, rich vocal harmonies, which are still alive and well to this day. Tenor singers usually lose a great deal of their vocal range as they get into their 60s and 70s, but don't tell John that, he still sounds great.
Suspicion yourself, don't get caught. Suspicion yourself, let others out. Wild and low. Suspicion yourself, don't get caught. Suspicion yourself, let others out. Wild and low.
When it comes to vocals and how they age, it seems like baritone singers fare best in the longevity department. If your voice sits lower and you're not writing melodies that require you to belt out your notes, your voice will typically age much better. r.e.m's Michael Stipe is a prime example of this. The melodies he wrote were well thought out and intricate, yet they all seemed to hover around a range that would be very comfortable for most male singers. Sure, he had his moments where he'd belt out some notes that broke his range, like the bridge in Everybody Hurts. But for the most part, he stayed low. I mean, can you really believe how little his voice had changed from 1982 to 2008? It's incredible. By the way, I normally like to find more recent clips of these artists singing, but when r.e.m. broke up in 2011, it seems like Michael Stipe has never sang an r.e.m. song since. So far, they're one of the few bands that have stuck to their guns when it came to the breaking up for good and not reuniting for that quick cash grab, which I would happily pay to be able to see this band live. Good Lord, to be able to sing in that operatic style for decades and still be able to command the stage into your 70s with that kind of power is truly mind-blowing. I may not be the biggest fan of this vocal style, but you gotta hand it to the guy. He's got the goods. Upon first listening to bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, my first thought was, this has gotta be all falsetto or head voice. You know, that voice where you can sing really high! But I think what they're doing is slightly different. I believe it's an odd mix of head and chest voice, creating this hybrid sound. Soundgarden vocalist Chris Cornell also used this same technique, but in a different, less operatic way. It's a technique that I think you either have or you don't. It either sounds cool when you sing like that, or it doesn't. And for Rob Halford, it still sounds pretty badass. You know, I had all these people in my comments section for the singers whose voices went to crap videos saying things like, yeah, well, let's hear you sing something and then how you sound in 30 years. Or, yeah, it's called aging. It happens to everyone. No.
No.
Not necessarily. Like, yes. If all these dudes in this list that I made today make it to the ripe old age of 90, yeah, they're probably not going to sound good anymore. But if you take care of yourself and are blessed with good genetics, the voice can last well beyond the years that people may expect. I mean, shit happens though, like people getting vocal polyps or getting into an accident or sickness, but for those lucky few that I've talked about tonight, their juices are still flowing. Also, before I end this video, I really would like to add Pink Floyd guitarist and co-lead vocalist David Gilmour to this list. The only reason he didn't get the video treatment at the beginning of this segment is because Pink Floyd were so notoriously bad at filming any of their early performances, so I couldn't truly show you just how well preserved his vocals have remained throughout the years. But trust me, he sounds just as goddamn good as he did back in the day. If not better. He's more refined now.
Taking away the moments that make up a dull day. You fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way.
Well, maybe not now, but in like 2016 to 2020 era, I've seen some live stuff sounded good. Co-lead vocalist, however, Roger Waters, could be argued should belong in these singers whose voices went to crap Ben, but honestly, I never thought Rogers had a good voice to begin with. He had a very interesting voice that was used very effectively in the band, especially on the Wall album, but it was more like an added bonus than anything else. David Gilmour was really the one who sold those classic Pink Floyd songs with his cutting rock grit in songs like Money or Young Lust, but he also had that softer, more gentle voice that was equally satisfying on songs like Comfortably Numb or Learn to Fly. So that's my list of singers who I feel are still kicking ass. Who did I leave out? I know you guys are going to have your opinions, and I will be glad to offer my rebuttals in the comment section. Until next time, though, have a good rest of your night.